evening. Welcome back to Answers on Eschatology. My name is Dan Derry, and I am the president of the Institute of Fulfilled Eschatology. Hey, I want to share some thoughts, some concluding thoughts from Matthew 24:31 with you this evening. And specifically, I would like to try to demonstrate that the gathering together of the elect was the reward of the righteous at the end of the Old Covenant age, at the time of the resurrection, in fulfillment of Revelation chapter 11, verse 18. Now, in order to get to Revelation 11 and demonstrate that, we have to go through Daniel chapter 12. Now, I'm not going to take the time to go through all these parallel texts. We should probably know that Daniel 12 and Matthew 24 are parallels. They are parallel prophecies. Now, what I will do is read the text. We'll just go through a couple parallels. We'll establish something, and then we'll go to Revelation 11. Notice in Daniel 12, verse 1, Daniel hears this, that there will be a time of great distress, such as has never occurred since there was a nation until that time. Well, Jesus quotes that very phrase in Matthew 24, verse 21, to speak of the great tribulation that will come upon his generation. And in Daniel 12, verse 2, Daniel is told about the resurrection. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground will awake. Well, Jesus in Matthew 24:31, as we've seen in the previous couple videos, when he said the elect would be gathered at the sound of the great trumpet, he was quoting Isaiah 27. But Isaiah 27 and the gathering of Israel would be fulfilled in the day of Israel's resurrection, Isaiah 25, verse 8. So the resurrection at the time of the Great Tribulation in Daniel 12, according to Jesus, would be fulfilled in his generation. Parallel, beautiful, beautiful parallels. And not to mention, this prophecy of Daniel takes place at the time of the end. Notice in Daniel 12:4, it says, Daniel concealed these words and seal up the book until the time of the end. Same thing is said in Daniel 12, verse 9. Go your way, Daniel, for these words are concealed and sealed until the time of the end. Jesus interprets that end as the end of the age. Matthew 24 and verse 2, 12, 13, and some other texts as well. Obviously, it's the end of the Old Covenant age. So we have beautiful parallels between Daniel 12 and Matthew 24. They're identical texts. And according to Jesus, in Luke 21, which is obviously the parallel to Matthew 24, Jesus places all of those elements as being fulfilled at the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70 at the time of the Lord's wrath and vengeance. Luke 21, 20 through 24. That's exactly where where Daniel places it in Daniel 12, verse 7. Daniel's told when the power of the holy people is completely shattered, all of those things would be fulfilled. Well, what was the power of Daniel's holy people, Israel? It was their covenant union, their covenant relationship with Jehovah through their old covenant. When that old covenant was fulfilled, removed, and the temple, which signified that covenant power, was destroyed, that power would be completely shattered. That was AD 70. Therefore, according to both Jesus and Daniel, the resurrection at the Great Tribulation would take place at the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. Now, having established that, which we probably already knew, what did that mean for Daniel? What significance did the end of the age, the fall of Jerusalem, the shattering of the power of the holy people, the Great Tribulation, the resurrection, what did that all mean to Daniel? Well, Daniel's told in chapter 12, verse 13, listen to this. But as for you, go your way to the end. Then you will enter into rest and rise again. That's Daniel's resurrection for your allotted portion. That's his inheritance. That's his reward. When? At the end of the days. So this end of the age, when Israel was shattered, the power of Israel was shattered at the removal of their old covenant world, at the time of the resurrection, Daniel would receive his inheritance. He would be rewarded. With that in mind, go with me to Revelation chapter 11. And before we get to Revelation 11, all that means is that Matthew 24 speaks of the reward of the righteous. That's the gathering together of elect. And that's what I want to tie together with Revelation 11 right here. Revelation 11:18 says this. And the nations were enraged, and your wrath came. And the time came for the dead to be judged, and the time to reward your bond servants, the prophets. That's Daniel. And the saints, and those who fear your name, the small and the great, and to destroy those who destroy the earth. So John sees a picture here in Revelation 11:18 of the day of the Lord's wrath at the time of the resurrection, when Daniel, the prophets, and the saints were rewarded. Now, according to Daniel, that took place at the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. According to Jesus, the gathering of the elect, that is the reward of the saints, took place at the fall of Jerusalem at the end of the Old Covenant age in his generation. Well, let's see if that lines up with Revelation 11. In Revelation 11, we are told that the rewarding of Daniel at the resurrection, at the time of the Lord's wrath, takes place at the sounding of the seventh angel. That's Revelation 11:15. Before I get any further, the sounding of the seventh angel, that's the seventh trumpet. No one denies that. Wouldn't that be the same great trumpet as Matthew 24:31? Well, when that trumpet sounded in Revelation 11:15, it's when a city falls, a great city. Watch this. Revelation 11:13. In that hour, there was a great earthquake, and 1/10 of the city fell. Well, what city fell at the sounding of the seventh trumpet at the time of the resurrection? Revelation 11:8 tells us. And their dead bodies will lie in the street of the great city, which is mystically called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. Who would deny that the city where our Lord was crucified was Jerusalem, Old Covenant Jerusalem? So here's the picture. Daniel receives his reward. He receives his inheritance at the time of his resurrection. When? At the sounding of the seventh trumpet. That's Matthew 24:31. When would that take place? At the fall of the city where our Lord was crucified. When did that city fall? AD 70. That was the shattering of the power of the holy people of Daniel 12 verse 7. That was the falling of the sun, moon, and the darkening of the stars of Matthew 24:29. That's the end of the old covenant world. What that means is that since in Revelation 11, Daniel received his inheritance at the destruction of Jerusalem, and in Daniel 12, Daniel received his inheritance at the destruction of Jerusalem at the end of the old covenant age. That means that in Matthew 24, at the end of the old covenant age, at the fall of Jerusalem, Daniel must have received his inheritance. Well, that's exactly what Jesus said in just a little bit different words. He shall send forth his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect. Was Daniel one of the elect? Yep, he sure was. What this means, ladies and gentlemen, is that the gathering together of the elect of Matthew 24:31 was the rewarding of the saints and the prophets of Revelation chapter 11, of Daniel 12. And that took place at the end of the Old Covenant age, at the shattering of the power of the holy people, at the time of the resurrection, at the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. And Jesus placed that in his disciples' lifetime, obviously. So I hope that is a blessing. That is amazing to me. We have just amazing harmony within the scriptures, proving the fulfillment of all prophecy in AD 70. And we'll pick it up again more next time on Answers on Eschatology. We'll see you then. Bye for now.